it's just so daunting to have to install it, use it, all of those fields.
It doesn't have to be daunting. You just need to know what the hell you want. Welcome, willkommen, bienvenue, as ever, David Chernick and myself, Gareth Wax, of the many purple hats, often in discussion about what constitutes modern sales and the parts wherein. And today is no exception. We're talking about, do you really need a CRM? Do you, David?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, I think, yes, you do ultimately need CRM.
Ultimately. That means at the final end of it.
At some point. Look, I mean, it depends what sort of business you're running, of course. If you are a one-man business, micro business, and you're not looking really to scale, you just want to do your thing, then you knock yourself out with a card index file, a diary, a spreadsheet, or something like that. But as soon as you want to be able to scale, and not even, I don't think scale that much, but scale to the degree where you want to get off the tools a little bit and work on your business, and perhaps get other people to deliver what you're selling, and perhaps other people to help you sell what you're selling, and maybe even take over that part of the job as well. And then really at some point, you're going to need some software to do that. And, and a database to do all of that. And that is called CRM. Whether you're buying something off a shelf, and our followers will recognize probably names like Zoho and Monday, HubSpot,
HubSpot CRM, and Pipedrive,
Salesforce, Pipedrive, yeah. Zendesk.
Oh wow, yeah, Zendesk.
Insightly, a lot of people are using Insightly at the moment.
Right.
Yeah,
but we're not hidebound by a particular CRM. I think we're focused on at what point do you need it, and
at what point, yeah,
and how do you prepare yourself for having one.
So if you know that you're in a business that you do want to try and scale at some point, then it pays to plan ahead. Yeah, I think you need to be in the realization that at some point you're going to need software to manage that selling and onboarding process, and perhaps software that's going to link to things like your marketing and things like other enterprise systems that you have, your email system, and whatever, and your website. And it pays to plan ahead, because one thing is for sure, and I can only really speak for sales software because I don't have a huge amount of experience with other types of software, but there's a trauma associated with onboarding and installing new software. Yeah, it could be very disruptive to your business. It can create and initiate all sorts of other types of organizational change. It's rarely just installing a piece of software and off we go. There's some change involved. So you want to try and preempt that trauma to make it as easy as possible when it does happen. And that means that if you are using enough data to warrant something like a spreadsheet or a notepad even, then start recording that data in such a way that it's going to make it easy to transpose into a CRM system later on. So for all my clients,
think about fields and think about what information you really need. Do you need their inside leg measurement, or do you really need their first name and their last name? That's the sort of thing you need to think about.
For sure. Now, the CRM systems that we just mentioned, and there are others as well, some of them are pretty rich pieces of data. They're pretty rich data sources, potentially, with loads and loads of fields to record all sorts of data that might be relevant. It might be very relevant to your market. I mean, inside leg measurement might be very relevant if your market is tailoring, right?
But you also got to think about what does the business need to see from you to show progress at the end of each month. It may well be, in many cases, that your sales manager or sales director wants to see some sort of progress chart, and you want to be able to show him that you're doing X amount of work to achieve that. And I don't know whether or not some of them want to go down to how many phone calls have you made and where have you made them. That may be some of them, but more important, they might want to know what types of business have you been approaching, or what has been your standard approach to these businesses, and all of that can be good. All of that.
All right, but look, there are a number of different reasons which might draw somebody towards CRM. One is to be able to handle contact data for a large number of people that you want to buy your services. So, just being able to list them, figure out who has been qualified, record conversations, know where you are at in their sales cycle so that you know when they need to be closing, all of that kind of stuff. So that is really about how to manage the progress of the sale. But if you want to manage sales more strategically, then yeah, it's very important to be able to see trends, to be able to see the state of your pipeline in a month, 3 months, a year, to be able to react to that, to be able to forecast your earnings, all of this sort of stuff, right? But, if you're a one-man band and if you are a micro business, then you probably do want to be organized anyway. What I'm saying here is to organize your data on a spreadsheet in such a way that if you wanted to put it into a CRM at a later date, that becomes easy. The other reason for doing it in an organized way is that the makers of CRM software have worked obviously with countless salespeople. So they have got a pretty good handle on the sort of data that you want to be recording, right? And I go with that. And the most important ones are the combination of a contact database, right, which just be your phone contact database. The main piece of information you're probably using on that these days is first name, last name, email, and mobile phone number.
Almost definitely.
Right, and name of the company. Right, so those are sort of the main things. So if you can imagine a spreadsheet with those half a dozen columns, then you're pretty much there. Yeah, and make sure that when you're saving the data in those columns, that you are saving, for example, a phone number as text rather than a number, because on a spreadsheet, most phone numbers beginning with 0 on a spreadsheet. If you type in any number beginning with 0 with no spaces, it's going to recognize it as an integer.
Okay, and the other thing is, if you're using a VoIP solution that calls off screen, which I do myself, that makes sure that you include things like +44 at the beginning, because some VoIP solutions get fussy about not having a country code. You need to think about this kind of crap before you put it in.
And again, on that note, again, it pays to record the data in a consistent format. So telephone numbers, once you start installing them into a CRM system, they will perhaps guess at the correct format. But it's important for you to get the benefits of that whilst you're using spreadsheets to record things like telephone numbers and emails in the right format. We have some rules at Treacle in terms of how to save data. We can go into those another time, but they are rules like checking spellings and things like that. Very, very important, but often ignored. And then once you've got the contacts installed on your spreadsheet, the other part of it is the qualification of your sales opportunities. Yeah. So, another column, which would be what the opportunity is, the qualitative description of that thing: mobile phones, consultancy, monthly coaching program, whatever it is, just the headline, plus the 2 other qualification criteria: estimated close date. So if they were to become a client, when would that be? Right. It's going to stay empty until both you and they know what date that is. And the third column is estimated order value. Yeah. If they were to become a client, what would this be worth? How much would they be paying? Something along those lines. Right. Now you really have the nuts and bolts of a CRM. And the only thing that I would really add on to that CRM wise, because I want to try and keep everything visible on your screen at any one time, is some way of being able to track and generate your own activity. So a column with the date, perhaps, or more usefully, a column with what I think of as notes, really, into which I will type a meager number of characters to capture the effort of capture the essence of each conversation or interaction, with a date assigned next to each one, and that date to be written in the same format every note. There you go. That's CRM. Now,
that is CRM. That's the very definition.
In answering the question, do I need CRM? Well, you need some way of being able to, regulate your activity, to know who you're dealing with, to be able to forecast where you need to put your efforts and how much money is going to come in, and all of that kind of stuff. And that is CRM. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy it off a shelf. HubSpot is still free every month, but of course they want to hook you into their marketing software, and then anywhere from 15 to 50 quid a month typically for a seat, but it can be worth it, especially if you want to start using automation tools, which are now all being built into all of these CRM systems. For example,
I think we should have a separate discussion about the use of automation tools, because I find, specifically on LinkedIn, which of course is my place where I earn my crust, the indiscriminate use of marketing automation can really drive a wedge between you and a potential sale.
Yeah, well, that is you're right, that is a subject all on its own. Look, if you want to become a spammer, then you're going to need to hook up with a CRM, okay, at some point.
Okay, great.
But that's not the only reason why you want CRM.
No, it's tracking. I think it's what's critical about CRM is actually for getting sales managers, sales directors, or even sales targets. I think it's tracking where you are and what you've done so far just in a day. It can be brilliant because you can look back and say, I did cover 50 calls today. I have tracked this information. Maybe I should spend some time now following up on the calls I made yesterday. Do you see what I mean? And writing that content in there. Now, I personally like CRM solutions either link straight through to a VoIP solution, so you're calling directly through it, so it records while you're doing the call. It comes up with a questionnaire. Did you manage to do this? What was the summary of the call? So that you can track it back, so you can make sure you're not continuously going over the same ground, or not covering the ground at all. But also, CRMs, which can be just as simple as saying which ones were called and how many times you've spoken to somebody in pharmacology this week. That can be useful too.
Yeah, I don't get too hung up about capturing every conversation, in great detail. And I also especially don't encourage people to record a lot of the conversation that they themselves, the seller, says. We know what we're going to be saying. Yeah, we probably say the same thing about what we do all the time. Yeah, we might tweak it ever so slightly, but the tweaks that we make to our pitch are going to be based on what they say to us. So I'm much more fixated with recording, and again, word for word, what people have said to me. So when I'm filling in a CRM, whether it's on a spreadsheet or on Zoho or anything else like that, I want to be able to capture the qualification data, and I want to be able to write down word for word what they have said to me when I've asked questions like, what are the issues that are keeping you up at night? What would you be seeing as an ideal solution to the problems that you've just outlined? Yeah, I want to be able to capture those things. And their answer to the question. So are we going to do this or what? Whether they give you a go ahead or give you an objection, I want to write down those things word for word. And that's where I'm putting it in my fields, in my CRM, either on the software or on a spreadsheet.
It's at this time I invite David to summarize our position.
Do I need a CRM? Yes, you need a CRM. Do you need the software CRM off the shelf or the one that you make today? That's going to depend on whether you are in the process of scaling or not. Will I need one in the future that is a piece of software written for me or that I buy off the shelf? Yes, if you are wanting to scale, for sure. I'm a micro business and I don't really have, I don't really need to want to grow, take on other people, come off the tools. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. You do not need to buy the software off the shelf. Yeah, especially if you're in a service business. A spreadsheet will be fine.
It just remains for me to say thank you so much, David, for helping me identify that. He's desperately trying to trigger his iOS to respond and fails miserably. No, nothing. They don't love Apple. Do not love you anymore. So thank you so much, David. Every week we try and do this around about the same time, occasionally at 10 o'clock, mostly around that same time. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Come on now. No, nothing. Oh, yes, finally. Good Lord. Oh, it was hurting me. Guys, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, look after your mental health, and realize that by accurate note-taking, it means that your client and you are both on the same page. And until next week, I wish you well and have a marvelous weekend. Bye-bye all.